Hey everyone, it is Sarah. Another garden video. This week I'm actually going to be doing a series of harvesting videos and possibly a series of like preserving or cooking type videos. I did not get to do a garden tour this past weekend because we were out of town and there was a lot of rain, which is a good thing. Free water for the garden. But today I'm going to be looking at my tomato plants and giving you guys an updates on those and harvesting them. So let's just get into it. On a side note, before we get into the tomatoes, my lettuce sure did sprout up over the weekend. Probably the rain and everything like that. This is a weed. That's a weed. So I'll be having another round of salads with my newly grown and ripe tomatoes. And here is the jungle. So you can see I actually took the time to tie some of these up. I'm just trying to make it work while I have the rest of the summer. It looks like there's no room to walk in through here at all. You can see some of these plants are getting affected by some sort of disease or blight or something like that, which I've given up on at this point. But I'm going to go through and pick all of the tomatoes. You can see some of these did split because it did rain. But nonetheless, they're still edible, and I do plan on making some salsa or something like that this weekend. So let's just take a quick look at some of these tomatoes. There's the black cherry tomatoes, which I never really understood why they were called black cherry tomatoes, because they're more like a brownish burgundy red than black. Not quite sure about it, and wow, that's really hard to focus. So one of the things that I discovered, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that last week I had my sister over and she loved bruschetta. So I was like, you know what? I have a lot of homegrown tomatoes. I'm going to try my attempt at making bruschetta for the first time. Oh my gosh. One of the best things I've ever had. It's going to definitely be something that I make a lot this week because I have a lot of ripe tomatoes and it was delicious. So maybe I'll do a video on that. Okay, you can see some of these I'm going to have to come through one day. It's too damp in here to really like prune them. So I'm just coming in and picking some of the more ripe tomatoes. I'm going to pick that bad boy back there. That's a Dr. Witchy. I'm thinking he's going to be probably one of my biggest tomatoes, if not one of these will. And I'm pretty sure they're good for picking. I'm feeling the bottom of them and they're fairly soft. So let's go ahead and snip those and I'll show you guys what they look like. This tomato is actually pretty big. It feels pretty heavy. I'm not sure if it's going to be my heaviest tomato. I'll find out whenever I go inside and I'll weigh some of these on the camera for you guys. I'll put it at the end of the video so you can see how much they weigh. These two are also pretty decently sized as well. Again, not sure if they're going to be my biggest. Right now, my biggest tomato that I have picked has been 1 pound, 5.5 ounces. So let's go ahead. I see some other, I see some red in there and some Lucky Tigers that might be ripe. So let's go ahead and take a look. And I'll pick a whole bunch of tomatoes, the rest of the tomatoes here, and then I'll show you what I got today. So far, this is what I've picked. However, I've come across something. Let's go in and take a look in the jungle. It is, in fact, my first sign of critter damage. It looks like something bit into this tomato. So I'm wondering if I have my baby bunnies in here still. That looks like it's a little damaged as well. This one's good. Which, I mean, if that's all that really happens, is just a lot of the lower tomato plants, or the tomatoes, have been picked already, but some of them, like these ones, haven't yet. As you can see, I need to come in here and prune really badly, but I'm gonna wait until it dries up some, just because it's kind of gross to touch all these wet tomato plants. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys that I do have some slight critter damage. Not sure if it's the bunnies or if it's something else, but I do have it. So as I was picking the tomatoes, I found this very interesting. This looks like the tomato has a whole bunch of specks and dots on it, similar to how the leaves have this on it. So I'm wondering if anybody knows, and I'll ask my mentor about this as well. I'll take a picture and send it to him. If anyone knows what that is it safe to eat the tomatoes still once it ripens? Is this just a like skin defect on the tomato skin itself? I just found it pretty curious. This one has some on it, but not nearly as much as this one. And then none of the other tomatoes that are growing have anything like that on it. So give me your thoughts. I can't hold this tomato plant up anymore. It's just bloop. It is what it is. It's starting to grow downward versus upward now. I mean, it's still growing up because it's still getting bigger, but it's getting heavy, so it's falling over. I can't support it anymore. Again, I know I said this in one of my previous videos, just another reason for me to for next year to put in the cattle panel with the T-posts, so that I don't have to worry, one, about this happening where they're basically just falling over even though they're staked up, but it'll offer a little more support. And I'm fairly certain I can get the cattle panel, even though it's 4 foot wide, I can have it sitting up off the ground about a foot. So it'll give me a little extra space on the top to stake these tomatoes up next year. Now, I will say that I made an error. Really, you should be picking tomatoes before it rains, because all of the sugars are concentrated in the tomato, so you get a better flavor in the tomato. But a lot of the tomatoes weren't near being ripe enough to pick. So I opted to leave them on the vine over the weekend. Some of them ended up splitting, which is fine. But they may not have as full of a flavor as if I would have picked them before it rained. So that is my error if these end up not tasting as sweet as I want them to. But nonetheless, they're still going to taste way better than a store-bought tomato. So I thought I'd just let you guys know that if you do pick tomatoes, try to pick them before it rains if they're very close to ripeness. Otherwise, a better flavor is found if they have like a dry spell before you pick them, because the sugars concentrate. So I'm going to finish picking the rest of these tomatoes, and then I'm going to show you guys my harvest. Look how tall my dill is. It's taller than I am. Now I can keep picking these flowers off to keep it from flowering. That's what I have been doing, but there's a lot of dill on here already. So I think I'll be fine to go ahead and let it flower. So here is my tomato harvest today. I am going to go in and weigh some of these tomatoes, and I'll be sure to have that at the end of the video so you can see how much the tomatoes were that I weighed today. The big Dr. Witchy's tomatoes, not the little ones. I think I have enough of the Dr. Witchy's that I can actually try to make some like crushed tomatoes for canning purposes. So I'm going to try to do that this week. I'm also probably going to make bruschetta this week. And we'll see what else I can do with the tomatoes as well. I do have a few other tomatoes that are still ripening. I mean, I have a lot of green tomatoes right now, but in regards to tomatoes that are going to be like quick to pick. I have the San Marzanos are starting to come in and ripe. So I'm going to be probably picking tomatoes consistently throughout the entire week. But in the future videos that I'm going to be doing this week for harvesting, you'll see me harvesting my parsnips, my carrots, probably the beets that I have. I'm also going to finish harvesting the ground cherries, the banana peppers, the jalapenos, maybe some cayenne peppers, and I'm going to check on the zucchini again, and then I'm also going to be harvesting some of this delicious lettuce here. I'll probably be picking some of that lettuce for BLTs at some point this week, because I gotta have a BLT at least once a week during this season now, especially since I'm growing like really big and delicious tomatoes. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm gonna have a whole bunch of short videos throughout the week. So be sure to keep an eye out on my channel for those. If you want a reminder, just click like, subscribe, and hit the little bell button so that you guys can see whenever I'm uploading a video. If you have any suggestions for content, or if you have any questions about my gardening style or anything like that, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. In the meantime, guys, happy gardening. Okay, so I have this set to pounds and ounces. I'm going to go ahead and start adding all of the tomatoes that I got, with the big ones starting first. And what I typically do if they have stems on them is I will cut as close down to the end as possible. So like there's that little nub there. I cut right underneath of that, just so that I can get the weight of the tomato and nothing else. Now this one, look at that. That's so weird. Some of these tomatoes grow weird because they're heirlooms, and that's okay. The flavor of the tomato is not going to change based off of the shape of it. So if it's taking me a little second, that's just because I'm snipping the stems off. I'm starting to get a little high in my bowl here. I might have to do this in a couple different sections. Here's another bizarre one. Woo! That stem went a-flying. Alright, I got one more left, and it's a big one. See this? That one's actually one of the bigger ones. We'll see if I can get this on here without... Oh. Okay. So it looks like I have 9 pounds, 7.4 ounces of Dr. Witchy's today, which is a good bit, actually. All right, and then obviously for the smaller tomatoes, if there are any of these stems on them, I'm going to pick them off first, so I can make sure that I'm not getting any skewed results. Now I have a lot of Lucky Tigers, and I tell you what, these are really good in the bruschetta. They have a good amount of juice. They're really sweet. They may not look it because they're green, but they're actually a green variety that has some like variegated coloring in it. So you can see there's like, I don't know if you can, I think there's too much shine. Maybe if I hold it back there. You can see there's some orange in those tomatoes, and some red and yellow. You guys don't really see how much I actually pick typically. I mean, I may just show you, but you don't know how much it actually is until you start taking it out of the basket and your perspective changes, because everything's like piled on top of each other. And then whenever you take it out and you start to put it in another container, you're like, oh my goodness, I have so many. I'm just cleaning off the bottoms of these. Now, I don't like put anything on my plants. Like I don't put any like bug dust. Now I did put some on my eggplants whenever I first planted them, because they were getting a lot of damage to the leaves, which they still are, but I just gave up at that point because at the time whenever I was putting it on, it was like raining every other day, so I had to keep putting it on, so I was just like, screw it. But I don't put any type of bug repellent or anything like that on my tomatoes. Okay, and then it looks like I have 3 pounds, 4.5 ounces. So that comes to a total of 12 pounds and 11.9 ounces. Woo-hoo! I have more. So I know they say not to store your tomatoes in a refrigerator, but I store them in there so they can keep longer. So these are all my little tomatoes here. And then down here I have a whole bunch of Dr. Witchy's tomatoes. A whole bunch of them. Now I'm going to put which one I think is the biggest, but there are a couple other pretty big ones I'm going to weigh as well. So right now my largest tomato is 1 pound, 5.5 ounces. Oh yeah! 1 pound, 7.7 ounces. So that is my largest tomato so far. And it's got like a little tail on it. A little tail tomato. So that's my largest one right now. I don't think this one's any bigger, but we'll go ahead and weigh it. 1 pound, 4.5. So that's actually my third largest tomato. So the first one was 1 pound, 7.7 ounces. I've had one that was 1 pound, 5.5 ounces. And then this is actually my third largest tomato at 1 pound, 4.5 ounces. Let's see if we can get any bigger. Ooh! All right, so there's my third largest tomato then. 1 pound, 5.1 ounces. These are my two biggest tomatoes in this harvest, and then I have one more that I'm going to weigh. Ooh, 7 ounces. Ding, ding, ding. All right. So these two are my biggest tomatoes over here. Coming in at 1 pound, 7.7 ounces and 1 pound, 7 ounces. I cannot believe that. I gotta make sure. Yeah, 1 pound, 7.7. Okay, now this says 1 pound, 6 ounces. All right, maybe there was just a little fluke there. But still, that is my second largest tomato at 1 pound, 6 ounces, because my previous one was 1 pound, 5.5 ounces. That's so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed me weighing out my tomatoes. Today I picked a total of 12 pounds, 11.9 ounces, and I picked my largest tomato to date at 1 pound, 7.7 ounces. All right, guys, have a nice day.